Hey and welcome to Neverwinter with Aragon. Today I'd like to go over which weapon enchantment is best for killing lots of enemies. Well, we potentially have the lightning as the best, but we also have a contender which could be potentially the flaming enchantment. Then there of course are a other few which I've gone and tested out just to make sure that none of them are, let's say, better than the flaming or the lightning. Now first things first, a quick disclaimer. This is on a rogue and I've went and tested them out on a rogue. A rogue has a certain skill set of at-wills, encounter powers, dailies, class features and feats and mechanics. So they're going to vary quite significantly between different classes. For example, on a rogue, we cannot gain additional benefit through our weapon enchantment on the additional hits from, let's say, our Path of Blades. When we look at a weapon enchantment, we can see it will initially give you a certain buff of 8% damage type. For example, the lightning will give you 8% bonus damage as lightning damage. Flaming will give it as fire damage. Now unfortunately, on a rogue, only the first hit of, let's say, your Path of Blades will give you that extra 8%. It's the same with your smoke bomb. And for the other damage ticks, you won't gain the benefit. Then for things like the toxic blades, you also won't gain the benefit, or for your oppressive darkness, you won't gain the benefit as well. So on a rogue, we gain a total of that 8% is reduced to an actual 2% of our overall damage instead. And we went and tested that out with a Holy Avenger, since a Holy Avenger will only give me the 8% radiant damage, nothing else. At least that's going to contribute to damage. So you can see the result here with my Holy Avenger test, and we got there a 2%. Now to do these tests, I went and jumped into the private queue, the skirmish, the master of the hunt, and we ran it solo. You do of course get scaled down, but in the long term that has no impact, as anything that relies on magnitude damage or even item level is scaled down with it, so it's all proportionally the same. So with regards to testing out these weapon enchantments, we actually went and tested out all 5 of these. We managed to obtain that the lightning enchantment does about 8% of my total damage. The flaming did about 6%. The prominence, unfortunately, only did 2%. The plague fire being at 5%, and the bilethorn also being at 5%. However, they can be situationally good or bad depending on how you're fighting. For example, if you're running into fights where you're just doing one encounter power and immediately killing everything, if that's the case, then things with additional procs like the lightning or the flaming will have zero benefit. You would then be better off, if that was your goal, to use a Vorpal to maximize that initial damage on your hit, so that you could one-shot them potentially. But if you've no way of one-shotting them, most party content you won't be able, then you're better off with something that will give you a bit more damage over the long term. For example, when we look at the bilethorn, it will deal 60 magnitude damage. Unfortunately, it's only after 4 seconds, so you'll have to wait 4 seconds for this to proc and deal the damage. So it's particularly good against high hit point enemies that are going to stick around for a little while, and you can rack up this damage. So in the Master of the Hunt, unfortunately there's not a lot of those enemies, and therefore we only obtained 5%. With regards to the Plague Fire, it's similarly effective, since you can only gain 8 magnitude damage per second, and when you get 3 stacks on the target, you then have the chance to explode the target, dealing 120 magnitude, and that's mainly what gave us the extra 5%, this exploding. Then with regards to the prominence, unfortunately we didn't actually gain any benefit from it because we were the sole target there, except for my companion Xuna, and thus we were taking a lot of the hits. And in order for the prominence to be effective, you need to not lose those stacks, lose that shield that you generate. Every time you hit your target, you will gain that shield, and you need 20 of those stacks to then go into the effect where you will deal 32 magnitude every 3 seconds for 12 seconds. Then with regards to the flaming, as soon as you hit them, they start burning for 24 magnitude, which is great, right? So as soon as you've hit those targets, they immediately start burning. no waiting around, and it's 24 magnitude, so that's a lot higher than, let's say, like your Dread or even your Plague Fire, which are only 8 magnitude. And on top of that, you have a chance for them to explode, dealing damage all around them as well of 60 magnitude. That 60 magnitude is the same as your lightning, so could your flaming be better? Well, it really depends on your situation, so let's do a few tests. A very easy way to actually test this out is we have our lightning enchantment slotted, and we go and jump into these guys, and we do a Blade Fury, and that's it. Then we look in the combat log, and we check out the damage we dealt. And we can see here, here's our lightning weapon with our lightning arcs. Unfortunately, we had a very low chance there and only got 1 arc. So we'll do the test real quick again. Jumping in, hitting them all, and you can see a lot more of them died because they were a lot lower HP. But let's have a look at our lightning arcs this time. And we can see we managed to get 5 procs there. Each of those procs dealing over 5,000 damage, and it gave us 53,000 damage there, which is just under 10% of our total damage, not to mention the 4% from the lightning weapon in the first place. So if we do the same test against them, but with our flaming, and we jump into them and we hit them and dodge out, we can see they all start burning along with my toxic blades, and we check out the combat log and we have the flaming weapon, and we can see it done a significant amount of damage. And in this situation, the flaming weapon does a lot more damage because of the duration it was up. So when you want to go and compare the flaming versus the lightning, it can be tricky, because if you're just like immediately killing your mobs, then the lightning can be just better because you're immediately getting those procs rather than having to wait. For example, with this flaming, you have to wait for those damage ticks to go off, and the benefit is it will be on everybody. As we can see that test there again, the flaming weapon did 17% of my damage with 1 cast of the Blade Fury. So with regards to just killing enemies ASAP when they're in a group, you could say the flaming can outdo the lightning, just due to the fact that there's no chance involved. Everybody you hit will be affected. When we look at what damage we just did there with the lightning, we can see again that the lightning only did a small amount of damage there, 4% for lightning arcs and 4% for the weapon. And when we looked at the flaming, we were doing like 17% there. So we got them all set up. We jump in, do 1 Blade Fury, and out we go, and let's have a look. So we look at the damage, and we can see again our flaming weapon was there over 14% of our total damage. But another thing you must put into consideration is the flaming enchantment, unlike the lightning, cannot make the procs deal your Lostmouth Vengeance. This Lostmouth Vengeance comes from the Storyteller journals. When you have a set of 3, you will deal an additional hit for weapon damage on a critical hit. And the lightning weapon enchantment will allow you to proc it off just with those arcs. Unfortunately, a flaming enchantment doesn't gain that benefit. So overall, it's pretty hard to draw a conclusion at which is better. In my opinion, it's situationally better. If you have groups of mobs and you're not able to one-shot them, and you know they're going to last a few seconds, the flaming can be better if they're nicely grouped up so that your powers will be able to hit all of them. On a rogue, unfortunately, when we use, let's say, our Path of Blades or Smoke Bomb, it will only initially proc on the first time you cast it. Meaning, if I'm stuck then with having cast all of my encounter powers, and I have none left, and there's still mobs to fight, and I just have a single target at will, and I just go and hit my target, as I've mentioned with the lightning, it can make it better to be able to essentially make my at-will kind of AOE by being able to hit multiple targets rather than only being able to hit the one target. So in my opinion, the lightning is better when mobs are spread out and you have longer fights with enemies. Flaming is better for burst damage. As you saw back earlier in this video, you could see that the results from a Master of the Hunt was that the lightning was doing about 2% extra damage over the flaming, and this again is mainly due to the fact of the mobs being spread out in certain times, and thus I'm not able to hit them all. to proc the flaming, and the lightning can just arc off at a certain distance and hit the guys that are further away, especially when I'm stuck in a longer fight where I have to use my at-wills and my encounters are on cooldowns. So that's going to be everything for this video. All that I can really say is just make sure if you want to maximize your AOE damage, just have either a lightning or a flaming enchantment and you're pretty much sorted. So hopefully I presented this well. If I did, consider leaving the video a like, and if you're new around here, consider subscribing. I'm going to see you guys around. Goodbye for now.